My name is Faith Duncan, and I'll be the moderator for this session. Welcome to Change at Your Doorstep, a session that has been in progress for over a year. This is a session for and about education and how the learning process can help us peel back information about climate change to get at the heart and basic literacy of the information and the subject matter. I'd like to thank those who are here today. I especially appreciate the efforts of the students and youth and teachers and mentors that are here. Dave Cleaves, Climate Change Advisor for the Forest Service, is joining us remotely from Washington, D.C., where it is now 6 p.m. The session is in two parts. The first part will be presentations by the Environmental Youth Leadership Team of Central Council Tlingit Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska. That'll be about 45 minutes long. There will be an interlude presented by Pete Griffin, after which we'll break to enjoy the art show at the back of the room and to view and interact with the poster session presenters from the Juneau Community Charter School. Followed by the second hour, there will be 3 success stories highlighted through 3 different presentations by educators. Then Mr. Cleaves will summarize the session. You will be able to see his presentation on the screen behind me. The resources for educators will be available at the close of the session. Where Betsy is at the back of the room there, wave Betsy. You'll be able to pick up packets and sign up for further information on our contact sheet. Now, I'd like to thank those who are not here. Tim Lydon for his encouragement and initial ideas about change at your doorstep. Kristen Romanoff, who spent a lot of time with me during the Alaska Literacy Project and helped me with educational connections in Juneau. John Morris of the National Park Service for the literacy exhibit that's out in the hallway. Anita Davis from Goddard Space Flight Center, NASA, for the photographs and the teacher packets. Mark Riley of the Forest Service Regional Office for his wonderful work on the MODIS imagery that created the map that you walked over entering the room, which will eventually, by the way, find its home at ACRC. Babs McDonnell, a scientist known for her work on the Natural Enquirer, which you see at your tables. And last but not least, my friend Betsy Outerkirk, who can basically be called support staff. She's amazing, and I couldn't do it without her. So let's get started. I am extremely pleased to introduce the Central Council Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska Environmental Youth Leadership Team, who forms the high school panel. They're going to be presenting here next, and the members of the team are going to be taking questions from the audience afterwards, and we'd like to give them a round of applause.
Hello everyone, thanks for letting us be a part of this important discussion on climate change. I'm not going to talk much. My name is Kate Jensen. I'm Central Council's Environmental Youth Specialist, and I couldn't thank the youth that I work with enough, or the elders, or the staff, and all the community coming together to help our youth find their sense of place in Juneau. I'm going to let them speak for themselves as their support staff.
All right. Hello? Okay, good. Gunnar Shish Anya Cassani, Yake Hati Gudi, Tlingit Kenach, Chushta Kla you hut do it sauk, Daika Kenach, Nicole George you hut do it sauk, Ye na hut city, Deshi Tan I hut, Tegwadi Yadi I hut, Tegwadi Dashkhan I hut, Kutsnu Kwan I hut, Goon Hiddach I hut, Gunnar Shish. So, thank you, noble children of this land. It's good to see you here today. Like our elders said before, they've always told us our lessons in stories. We've never had a written language. We always had it oral. So we would always sit down and listen to stories, and we would listen for the deeper meaning. Now in today's society, scientists are just reestablishing what Tlingits have already known for thousands of years. They are just reiterating what our elders know from experience, from living in this land, from thriving in this land. So with that, I would like to introduce my fellow environmental youth leadership team members.
My name is what working? Yeah? Okay. My name is Alyssa Cadiente Lady Blattner, and I'm going to do my Clink introduction so you guys can get to know me better. So, Tleika Kainach, Alyssa Blattner, Yuchat, Duasak, Chak, Nachat Tadi, Takeaway D, Ayachat, Kusnu, Kwan, Ayachat, Yanye D, Jeshkan, Ayachat, Hoots, Hit Dach, Ayachat, Kusnu, Kwan, Ayachat, Ganash Chish.
Ahidzi Yuchat Duasak, Chakna Chatsati, Takeaway D, Ayachat, Tlaine D, Ayachat, Hoots Hit Dach Ayachat.
Ganashish. My name's Dominique, and I'm Eagle.
Kakaya u yuchat duasak chach nachat sati deshitan yatki. Sorry, my English name is Julia Gregory. We are the Tlingit and Haida's environmental youth leadership team. We want to enhance living in our traditional values and environmental awareness. Some of our programs involve the Heen Latini series, Earth Days, annual culture camps, wilderness stewardships, media outreach, and jobs and internships. What we bring as a team to this program is we have a blend of different people. There are Tlingit, Yupik, Inupiaq, African American, Filipino, Pacific Islander, and Caucasian. We carry our traditional knowledge, and we are stewards of land, air, and sea. So with that, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to do a culture camp with Tlingit and Haida. With that first opportunity, we created, like Julia said, the Environmental Youth Leadership Team. With my third opportunity, I got to help build a project that started off as a small idea. Going to these culture camps, the elders have always taught me that our resources are valuable and important to the people. And with that, they sparked an idea in me that, well, what is going on with our resources with global climate change? There hasn't been a lot of research. So one day I went into the office and created a chart that you see on your table. It's like a dichotomous key placing all the different resources that we use and vitalize, such as land resources and sea resources. With that came the project Rolling, which on the screen is Heen Satki, which was a name given to us by our elders, David Katzik and Paul Marks, which in Tlingit means leaders of the water.
So the people that helped us with our journey were people from, I'd like them to stand up so we can acknowledge them. We have staff from Global Heritage Foundation, David Katzik, Barbara Cadiente Nelson. You guys can stand up so we can acknowledge you and thank you. And then we also have Paul Marks, who wasn't able to be here. We have staff from the U.S. Forest Service, Rick Edwards and Karen Mayer. And then we'd also like to thank our staff from Clink and Haida. We have Helene, Ray Paddock, and Kate Jensen, who's up here with us, and Leilani Knight. Okay. One of our final projects will be going to Heen Slatini, the experimental forest. This will help us tie in all of our knowledge that we've learned about forest, glaciers, Osquani, the tree people, and geology.
Okay. So on the field trips that we went to the glacier, which we tested 2 different streams, the Steep Creek and Peterson Creek. What we learned were 3 different types of streams: the brown water, clear water, and glacial streams. They differ in nutrients and turbidity, but we really learned about ha'ani.
In this slide, we studied water quality sampling and tested pH and turbidity to get a better understanding of the climate change in Alaska.
Here is a closer look at one of our tests we did out at Peterson Creek. We used transects to measure the diameters of rocks, and this is a graph of our data.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't able to see the full slide. I was like, no, that's not my slide. Sorry about that. Okay, this is some more information that we took out at Peterson Creek. We learned how to organize our data. Some of the things we learned were GPS coordinating, weather, the pH, and dissolved oxygen in the water. And go to the next slide. Okay, and some of the things that we really learned was that water is everywhere. We learned this, that water is everywhere because we did a test. We dug a hole and we could see that water was streaming under it even though we couldn't see it.
Everything is connected, and one example is that there was water in there's trees in the salmon and there's salmon in the trees.
The importance of what we can't see, like the water holding up our bodies.
And we had lessons on carbon, such as the carbon cycle and how it affects muskegs and different water samplings. And we learned that carbon is actually a vital tool of life, but when is it becoming too much?
Everything in our ecosystem and life is woven together like a chill cat blanket. You can't take one thing out without harming or disturbing all the other components.
Everything has a spirit. For instance, you could use a stethoscope to hear the heartbeat of sap running through the tree.
In this slide, Rick, David, and Paul taught us how to read this diagram. Can anybody tell us in 1 or 2 sentences explaining this picture? Anyone? I'll call on you.
No. This is carbon dioxide. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so with that, you guys noticed that it was a water cycle and that also it was a carbon dioxide cycle. But looking at it through an indigenous eye, we see that everything is connected and that everything has a spirit. Like the arrow is showing the trees are breathing into the air and the air is giving back to the trees, and it's just one big huge cycle. So with that, our elders again have always told us stories. One story that I will always remember is that raven putting a fire into everything, giving it a spirit. They always say, Asquani has a spirit, we have a spirit, and the oceans have a spirit. And one story that I'm always being told is that of the herring eggs flowing in the ocean like hair. And hopefully one day when I'm an elder, I won't have to tell my grandchildren about how there used to be abundance of cedar trees where I could weave baskets and weave hats for them to show off. And with that, we just wanted to let you know, what will your story be? Like ours is just beginning, so thank you.
Amazing, isn't it? Aren't they? Yeah. I wanted to offer up time for questions, and the generous staff and elders that have supported the project are also available. And if there are any questions, step forward to the microphone and we can see what we can do to collectively answer them. So good, no questions? Yes, thank you. There it goes.
Thanks, Ray. Hi, and thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you very much for your work and your interest in bettering yourselves and our community because of it. And I don't want to assume your motivations, but I appreciate you and I appreciate your work. I guess my question is, what are, maybe you could each share what are some of your plans for continuing this work? And I'm not even honestly sure how old you all are, if you're out of high school, or and what some of your plans are to continue this. So thank you.
So you also have on each table you have the Clink and Haida booklet, that a newsletter that's hot off the press that actually is recognizing our beautiful Nikki, who has been accepted into Dartmouth, Princeton, and into what was the other one? Stanford. And through the programs has decided environmental science is definitely where she wants to go. And Alyssa, what are you doing currently even?
I currently volunteer at Clink and Haida. I'm helping with the EYLT team, which is the Environmental Youth Leadership team, so I'm just helping out with that. And this Saturday, we're doing something at the glacier for Earth Day.
And by the way, Alyssa is come full circle, so she's come through the Environmental Youth Leadership team now into a position to provide direct support to youth and encourage the mentoring that we've instilled in her. Aquino, what are you gonna do?
I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do. So yeah, I'm still thinking.
Well, school's a good start. Just get that done real good, and then you'll know. It will come to you. He's still in school, right? And by the way, Alyssa's still finishing out her senior year as well. Miss Dominique, our youngest leader.
Well, like Aquino said, I'm not really sure what I'm planning to do in the future, but yeah, just go with the flow.
Miss Julia.
I'm going to finish high school because I am a freshman in high school. So I'm planning on graduating and sticking out with this kind of program and trying to get younger youth to do this because it's very fun and it's nice to see that they're learning.
In addition, I think the part of the question was also what are we planning to do to carry on the work. The Hain Latiti project was this is just one series of what we'll be doing with youth in preparation for the Alaska Coastal Rainforest. So with the continued collaboration with folks like Gold Belt Heritage, the Juneau School District, bringing on other resources and anthropologists, I'm hoping, and David Katzik as our elder, our Tlingit knowledge bearer. We hope to continue the work that Nikki started with the grid that you have in front of you that she mentioned. We want to really hone in our program to address those concerns that have come from our youth themselves. We hear the same concerns from our Tlingit elders as well and our tribes. So we want to continue developing programs that help us better understand adaptation. Any other questions? If hearing none, I would love it. Oh, sorry.
Cassani. My question is, for you young people, how can scientists do a better job, or how can we better reach out to the public? What suggestions would you give after sitting in on you've been in school and probably missed some of this, but how do you think scientists can better reach out to the public?
Nikki, do you think you can hit that one for us?
Sure. Well, before our presentation, David was talking to us about being a good scientist. He said that being a good scientist, if you don't know how to relay the information, then you just have good data. So I believe if you put it in terms that civilians that may not have a science base like you do, and putting it in terms that they will understand, would get the community really rolling on how to deal with the problem that they have at hand.
Sheesh. Any other questions? Yes, Kanan's got a question. And go ahead, David. Come on. Kanan, will you stand right behind him?
What was one of the most important things in the Tlingit educational system regarding what you were studying that was emphasized pretty heavily? Anybody? I'm just seeing if you remember what we talked.
The test. Oh, the test. Do it. And do it together. You know the answer. Let me help you rephrase it, though, because I know you know it. What meant the most to you? What did you get from this whole entire lesson?
Well, I thought learning about Ha'ani was really important to me. Learning about our land and environment.
Hey, very good. Kanan?
Wait.
Oh, you wanted to say more? Nikki's got another response.
No,
Nikki, go
David
ahead.
was giving me a signal.
Smoke signal or what?
Yes. Okay. So I've personally only attended one experiment that we did because I've been so busy. But when I was there, David talked about how our land is always on a seesaw, that we're always adapting and always learning new things about our land and just going with the changes. And that right now, the change, even though it is drastic, that we will get through it like our elders have always have done in the past thousands of years. So, yeah.
Good.
The word was wushkachtate, balance. Balance in everything that is done. Because whatever we do, we'll have it, whatever happens on one side of the ledger will also affect the other side. So wushkachtate was one of the most important aspects of learning about the scientific studies and things that you're doing. So thank you very much for the great, fantastic work. You're going to be the handsomest for the guy and the most beautiful scientists that this Southeast Alaska has ever seen. You're going to be good.
Speaking of that one, Kanan, I want to take a quick question, but we have to honor someone as well. And so if you'll go ahead and come forward. And I also want to thank Mr. Hopkins, who has been a champion for Tlingit and Haida Central Council, starting at the grassroots level and classroom support for how do we incorporate traditional ecological knowledge in the Juneau School District. And you were the starts of that. You encouraged us throughout that to where we are today, and I hope we make you proud. Our work's not done, though. Kanan.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you thought, or what you think the role of traditional knowledge is in a high school education, not just for your program, but maybe for your entire student body in the high school class today.
That's a good question. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, what do you wish as Native students in the school district that you could have in your classrooms that others could experience as well? You want to go, Julia? I see it at the tip of your tongue.
Well, we have a very beautiful culture, and yeah, I don't know, just getting to share that with the rest of the students and sharing the knowledge.
Yeah. Yes. Anyone else have anything to add? What do you wish that was expressed or that you could learn and or share about the Tlingit culture in school? Regular, like it was always.
I guess I'll talk. So in Mr. Hopkins' class, he taught biology, and I was grateful to take his class because he always incorporated some Tlingit culture into it, whether he brought in an elder or whether he had like the word of the day, which for me influenced me to talk more Tlingit and go up to him, and I wasn't afraid to tell him from my point of view what the Tlingit people thought about it. And I guess what would be really cool to bring into the school system is maybe the stories. Because one kid may not understand the whole science behind it, but may understand it in a story. They could find the deeper meaning, the hidden meaning that they find more interesting than learning from a textbook about how the cell goes into the plant and how the plant feeds. So, yeah.
Very good. Okay. David.
So, just looking at some of those slides and hearing about Peterson Creek and the opportunity to learn from your elders and the opportunity to present to us and the opportunity to have the elders listen to you, I would imagine that would be a pretty illuminating feeling. It would be a pretty empowering sense of a connection to the land or remembering that connection to the land. I'm just wondering how these experiences have helped you guys remember the land or how they've made you feel.
Kino, you want to give that one a go? How did it feel to be connected with the elders and with the experience of going out and hearing that, as well as with the scientists? It's a feeling.
Can you say that question again?
Yeah, like the experience that was provided through this Heen Latini process, how did it make you feel as a Tlingit, as a human being connected to science and tradition?
Well, I felt really how do I say this? I felt really valuable to get to learn this type of stuff. Like, one of the things I learned was there's 30% of water in the sandbar under. And that was really cool to me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dolly. Dolly, maybe you could just come on up this way and use the microphone. And I'm going to call our Tlingit folks, Tlingit and Haida folks forward. David, predominantly, if you could come. And we'll stand behind our youth and stand behind Dolly. Dolly's paved the way for Native people in sciences. And so I want to, the Tlingit and Haida way is that we acknowledge each other and hold each other up. And we have our future scientists, our scientists today. I mean, really, they're scientists today. They're doing it. And we have Dolly, who's paved the way. And so if the Tlingit and Haida people will come and wrap our arms around the folks that have paved the way and are creating the way as well. David? Dolly, you got a question, though.
Do you have a question, Dolly?
Well, not a question, but I just want to thank you for your presentation. And I want to encourage all of you to consider environmental sciences part of your future. If you're not sure where you're going, that's okay.
Aaron.
I finished high school with barely above a C, and I barely got into college. And I had a hard time the first couple years. But I listened to my uncles, and they told me where to go and what to do, and I followed their direction, and it led me the right place. I would have never, ever, ever spoken public when I was in high school. So the first steps that you've taken are phenomenal. The information you shared with us is spectacular. And I want you said it made you feel important, and it should. It should make you feel good inside that you're willing to do this, that you're able to do this, and that you want to do this. So I congratulate you all for being here and taking this important step forward, and we're not just here for me, we're here for you. We're holding you up, and we hope to keep you going forward. Ha'a.
Come on over here. Stand over here a little bit.
I know, I'm nervous.
A long time ago, when when our people came to the shores, the people would say, I'm not going to use the Tlingit language, I can, but I just try to keep it short. They would say, where did this boat come from? Where did this boat come from? And what's your purpose for coming? And that individual would respond, or the individuals on that canoe would respond. And acknowledgement and recognition is just as important in the Tlingit world as it is in any other world. Recognition and acknowledgement of leaders and those who've gone before us and have led the way is really important for us, Dolly. And I want to publicly, and all the people that are up here with you right now, there looks like there's a few of us, but in our tradition, the blood of our ancestors are running through our veins. And may it be as if the ancestors of the Tlingit nation are here today to acknowledge, recognize, accept, and hold you up for the work that you're doing, for who you are, and want you to know that we are very, very proud of you. Anya Cassani. When we say that, what that word means this: without question, without doubt. It's not debatable. There is no doubt whatsoever that you are a very precious human being, child of the earth. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that Shanakotla story. And I want you to know that our stories have a lot of scientific information in it. Someone's working on one today. I've been working on one that is called Kakachkuk. It's about the man who, and his group, that got lost out at sea and then came back. So thank you very much, Dolly. Thank you. We just want you to know we're proud of you. Ho, 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 ho. Yeah, well.
That concludes. Ganesh for listening.
Yeah, just turn this off. Thank you very much. That was extraordinary, and I very much appreciate everyone who was on the stage, elders and mentors, teachers. That was wonderful. Thank you. Now, what I'd like to do now is introduce Pete Griffin. He's going to do a little transition with a break, and we'll have the break right afterwards. But I want to draw attention to Pete's background, because I met Pete in the Forest Service. But actually, I heard his voice on Tongass trails before then. Please welcome Pete Griffin.
Well, thank you. Boy, what an honor to be here. And I was so pleased with the students group, the first learning at the top, everything is connected. because that was going to be one of the topics of my little story today. And it's about changes. You know, when I was growing up back in the 50s and 60s, I had some environmental concerns as well, but they weren't the environmental concerns today. But I did want to focus on 4 laws of ecology. Barry Commoner, a professor at the University of Washington, in 1971 came up with the 4 laws of ecology. Number 1, and these weren't original, but he brought them all together and simplified them. Number 1 is everything is connected. Number 2 is everything must go somewhere. Number 3 is there is no free lunch. And number 4 is nature knows best. Now, that's the one I take a little bit of issue with, because if nature knows best, then those of us who wear glasses, and those of us who have ever had an appendix removed before it ruptured, or those of us who have a smallpox vaccination have kind of thwarted nature. But like I said, back in the 1950s and 1960s, my big concern was litter. People were throwing their garbage out alongside the road. Gosh, there was in America the Beautiful program that wanted to beautify America's roadsides, because this litter was actually garbage and it belonged in a dump. And we had a dump in our community. It was a place that started out on a high hill, and you'd kind of back up the pickup to the edge of it, and you threw your garbage over the edge, kind of out of sight. And that was our garbage dump. Well, back in the 1960s, folks started to become a little more aware of what was going on, and there were laws passed. You couldn't have a dump any longer. You had to have a landfill. It meant you had to cover up your garbage with dirt. And I'll tell you, this garbage dump was just a horrendous thing. It stunk. People would set it on fire. There were hundreds of thousands of rats that lived at this place. But environmental laws, good thing. We covered up our dump. And it became a landfill. And the rats moved out and into the surrounding communities where we lived. And we had rats running all over our neighborhoods. There were rats in the driveway, and in the winter, dogs would corner rats. And I remember my dad shooting one day. It was a huge rat, and the dogs had it backed into a corner. Well, one night, we came home after school and after work, and we had a rat in the house behind the stove. The only way we got to it, Dad took the .22 and he killed it. You know, a lot of folks go, oh my boy. Well, we lived in a rural area. Anyway, I had this nightmare that one night I was going to wake up in the dark and there would be a rat in my bedroom. You know, kids have developed these kind of fears, almost paranoia. Well, one night I woke up, middle of the night, dark, and I could hear a scratch, scratch, scratch. Oh, I knew exactly what it was. So I got my flashlight out and I shined it around. Rat, go away, rat. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. I did not have a .22 in my bedroom because my parents didn't like kids having loaded weapons. So I was looking around, and the noise was coming from this corner behind a cardboard box, and it was getting louder, and I could tell it was coming out, and I was standing there. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I had just taken up bow hunting. I had a bow on the wall, so I stood there in the middle of my bed and I strung my bow, and I grabbed a broadhead. And I was holding the flashlight, standing in the middle of my bed in my underwear with my flashlight and my bow with a broadhead on full draw, and out came this rat from behind a cardboard box. A little rat nose, and then whiskers, and then great big beady rat eyes, and just a little bit further, and I was going to nail that daggone thing. And a little further, and its side immersion was a sleek, furry side, and it kind of pretty, actually. And a little further, and there was its tail, and instead of a scaly rat tail, it was a broad, flat, furry tail. It was a flying squirrel. A flying squirrel, that's what I said exactly. I had never seen one before, other than pictures and books, and I figured the chances of me ever seeing a flying squirrel were about as good as me seeing those flying monkeys from The Wizard of Oz, which was the source of another nightmare, but that's a different story. So anyway, flying squirrel, I wasn't worried about flying squirrel. I jumped off the bed, I hollered, and the flying squirrel took off, ran behind the cardboard box. I ran over there, found the hole where he had got into the bedroom, and I stuffed the hole full of dirty socks, and I was safe. Now, our memories from our youth sometimes get a little twisted. And I asked my friend one day, I said, do you remember when the rats invaded town? He said, man, he said, do I remember? He said, we were sitting in the living room, and it was Christmas Eve, and a rat ran across the floor and ran into the master bedroom. And he said his dad raced in there. He grabbed a hockey stick. I guess he didn't have a loaded weapon handy either. And everybody was standing around. Archie slammed the door shut, the bedroom door shut, and all the presents were in there. And the rat had hidden behind this stack of presents. And Archie was opening up the door, handing out a couple of Christmas presents, and the kids were going, whoa, that one's for me. Look at the size of that. And he kept handing out presents, and eventually they heard wham, wham, wham. Archie was chasing the rat with the hockey stick. Finally, it ran into the closet, and Archie was removing all the clothes, taking down the clothes out of the closet. He finally got to the point all he had left was a pair of dress pants hanging there, and he gave, there was a lump in the leg, and he gave it a two-handed slash that would have got him 5 minutes. And a game misconduct, an NHL game, killed the rat. Now, they got rid of it, and Art's mother had everything in the house dry cleaned after that. But I always remember that. And it highlighted some of those laws that I just talked to, very commoners' laws. That everything is connected. You can't do one thing. You can dump your garbage, but it has another effect. It attracted the rats. You can say the dumps are a terrible thing, let's cover them over. That did one thing, but it did something else. It forced the rats out. Now, there wasn't any free lunch for sure. And I struggled with it, and actually, nature knows best. I have struggled with that one for a while, and actually, today, while thinking about that and writing down what I was going to say, I finally realized how that applied to the whole situation. Nature knows best. We can tinker with nature and we can improve things. We can irrigate the desert and grow more food, but it has an effect on the Colorado River. Now, nature knows best. How would I apply this to this whole rat situation? Well, nature recycles. Nothing goes to waste. Salmon rot, nutrients go into the ground, go into the bears, go into the eagles. Those nutrients are recycled up in the trees, back out to sea, back to the land. Nature doesn't waste anything. And that's what we can emulate. We can recycle things. We can use things up. We can use them more. In fact, I was doing something just a little while ago on recycling and the Oregon bottle bill years ago. I was opposed to deposits on bottles. That's a terrible thing. Just a big waste. Taking my money and they passed the law in Michigan. And actually, I found out it was pretty neat. But in Oregon, I think in 2009, something like 23 million gallons of gasoline, the energy equivalent of 23 million gallons of gasoline was saved by recycling those beverage containers, aluminum and plastic. That's the equivalent of 40,000 cars. And I don't know how many umpteen tons of carbon dioxide into the air. So nature knows best. Nature recycles. We ought to emulate nature as well. But that is my story of the rats. And with that, I thank you for inviting me.
Now we're going to give you an opportunity to take a look at the art show from Tonga School of Arts and Sciences and meet with Renee Drummond and her 5 students who are here with their poster sessions on an energy project that they did last year. So please give them your attention, ask them questions. They are ready to go, right, Renee? Yes. Okay. We'll resume in 10 minutes.